We are live. Okay. Let's just wait a couple of minutes just to see if anyone can pop on. I know it's a Friday night, so people are probably busy. Saying that, I'm about 5 or 6 hours ahead of everyone over in the States, so if it ends up just being me, it's all good. I'm just going to go over some information regarding the novel I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night. So anyone in the chat, say hello and we'll get this thing started. So my question is, what is the longest running novel series in the expanded universe? Does anyone know the answer? Let's see. Bear with me. Okay. So, what is the longest running expanded universe novel series? Do you know the answer? That's right, Tony. The new Jedi Order. Have you read any of them yet? Also, thanks for being in the chat. I don't recognise the name. Good to see you. Happy to have you here. So far, I've just started the series, so I've read Vector Prime, which is the first book in the series, and as I said, you were right, it's the New Jedi Order. The New Jedi Order, commonly known as NGO, is a book series consisting of 19 novels, and it was published by Del Rey between 1999 and 2003. It's also, like I said, it's the longest running book series in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. What's your favourite book in the series? There's a few answers that people sometimes give. Trying to see if the chat's going to pop up here. I'm new to this. Let's see. They should be popping up. Oh, a couple more people want to say hello before we get into it. We are going to be talking about the new Jedi Order. Bear with me, folks. My notes are being a bit weird. Hey, Darth Prime. Good to see you, pal. I'm doing this on my phone, so if yous are... It does pop up when yous are talking to me. But I'm just hoping that it's working properly. Give me a second. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Let's see. Right, okay. But anyway, we are talking about New Jedi Order, the longest running book series in the the Star Wars universe, expanded universe. Basically, in 1997, the publishing contract for Star Wars novels had been renegotiated with Del Rey, and the decision was made to produce a large series that would take several years to publish. So, previously under the Bantam Spectra license, the majority of novels had been trilogies or standalones. And this basically meant that despite the tightly monitored continuity, these novels were being written simultaneously and published in close succession. So they were getting told out of order basically. Um, However, the series would be one large chronological story, and it covered a 4-year period in the timeline beginning 21 years after the Return of the Jedi. So, which Darth Prime, which of the new Jedi Order have you read so far? That's right. Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So he did. There was like a TV commercial, and he actually provided the voice to it. It was just made up of like segments of the original trilogy movies. Anyways, moving forward, there were 12 authors in total that were chosen to contribute to the series, which was a collaborative effort conceived by Del Rey, Lucasfilm, and Dark Horse Comics. And then they had, was it 1997, they were having meetings at Skywalker Ranch basically to discuss the project and get all their ideas together. And I know that George Lucas was in a few of those meetings. James Luceno said that he was within arm's reach basically, so he was involved in coming up with the concepts and stuff like that. Other people that were at the meetings were Sue Rostoni from Lucasfilm licensing, um, Shelley Shapiro from Del Rey, uh, Audrey Wilson from Lucasfilm, and what's his name, Randy Stradley from Dark Horse Comics, and he was the one that came up with the concept of Nominor as the villain, because he was actually created for the Crimson Empire 2 comic book run, where didn't have they didn't clarify like his species, so they utilized him because that's where the idea of like a intergalactic invasion kind of came in. So they took that idea and utilized it here. And Howard Rothman, he was also there at the meetings, so he had a bit of input. And he, for anyone that doesn't know, was the president of Lucas Licensing. So he's the person that George refers to when he talks about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost in that 3 pillars of Star Wars, the Star Wars world, basically. So George, when he's talking about worlds, there's his world, which is the movies, and then there's the Son's world, which is the licensing, that's the comics, the novels, the games, all of that stuff. And then the Holy Ghost is basically like fans, like fan films and stuff like that, which George actually appreciated. And I'm pretty sure at like celebrations they did contests and stuff like that for that stuff, stuff like that for that stuff. So yeah, that's really cool that they were all involved at these meetings at Skywalker Ranch, just kind of getting the ideas and concepts together. It also included James Luceno. He was hired to kind of oversee it all. This was before his first novel. His first novel was actually in the New Jedi Order. I think it was Michael Stackpole did 2 and 3, so he would have done book 4 and I think maybe 5. So he was involved. Daniel Wallace, he was also there, because the project was on such a large scale. They had that was more closely supervised. So they had it was kept consistent basically by these continuity advisors. So James Luceno and Daniel Wallace, who you'll know does a lot of the source books. He did the Book of Sith, the Jedi Path. I believe he did some of the. He was involved with some of the essential guides. He's done loads of good work compiling all that stuff together. Oh, and Leland Chee, obviously, he was involved in that team as the Keeper of the Holocron. And what's his name? Is it Alan Kosh? And I'm pretty sure he did the first version of like the Star Wars timeline of like everything that had been created in kind of like a linear fashion. And James Luceno did the series Bible, which if you've been on the Star Wars Marvel Purists recent streams, he did one where he actually covered the series Bible, and a lot of it is to do with the lore behind the Yuzang Vong, which I wish I'd known about that series Bible beforehand, because it explains a lot of the lore behind their biological technology, and because the Vector Prime, when we get into that, it talks a lot about their weaponry, their technology, and it's all these creatures that they basically trained or bred to serve their purpose. But this series Bible goes into a lot of detail about that, and it'd be good to have that like in hand, just so you don't lose track, because I definitely got a little bit confused. Although the book does a good job of explaining it all, it can get a bit confusing, like with the Ooglyphs and the I've already forgot it rhymes with Ooglyph. So that's cool that they actually had that. They had that beforehand. It was all, planned out, and it was given a bit of leeway so they could kind of shape the story as they went along, but they had kind of like a lot of those beats and story arcs planned out. Luceno actually said, he was talking about the series Bible, he said, we are mindful that we are playing in George Lucas's backyard, but everyone who has written for the franchise has contributed something. So we like to talk a lot about Star Wars canon. He's talking about contributing to that. If it wasn't canon, they'd just be doing whatever they wanted. But no, they planned this all out. They had George involved. As I said, he was within arm's reach of some of those Skywalker Ranch meetings. And Michael Stackpole, who I mentioned, did the second and third book in the series. He was chosen by Lucasfilm to coordinate what they were doing. I said James Luceno kind of oversaw the storyline and stuff, but Michael Stackpole was there as well. And basically he was the only person that had read Timothy Zahn's last book. I believe at the time the New Jedi Order was following on from Visions of the Future, so which I believe actually sets up the intergalactic invasion. So bro, I agree, I'm through Vector Primes. Yeah, a little bit confusing, isn't it? So it's a series Bible written up by James Luceno and everyone that was involved. I don't have a link to it, but I'll find it after the stream and I'll send it your way. Or if you go, as I was saying, to Star Wars Marvel Purists channel, he did a stream not that long ago that went over it. but it's really helpful. I'm sure he'll be bringing a lot of that up during the stream tomorrow. Where did I get to? Michael Stackpole, and he actually said that they didn't want to hire him. They didn't want to hire anyone that was involved in the Bantam era novels. Yeah, yeah. If remind me, I'll send it your way. Um, so he was there, and apparently the other people working there were a bit miffed because they kind of had to go through him because he knew what they could and couldn't do. Again, talking about canon, what they could and couldn't do. But anyway, we've been talking about the Vong. It was decided that they should introduce a newer, larger threat. Who obviously I mentioned appeared in the Crimson Empire 2 comics first, Nominor. The name for the Yuzang Vong. Here's a little bit of trivia. It's derived from a French Thai restaurant in New York City where a lot of the members of the planning team ate. A bit of useless information. And so they decided to create an utterly alien species who could not be sensed in the Force, and they're basically influenced or inspired by the Islamiri or the Islamir from Timothy Zahn's Heir of the Empire, and that's a funny thing because a lot of people like to talk trash about the new Jedi Order. That they'll say it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It was just over the top, and a big gripe is that the Yuzang Vong couldn't be seen in the Force, but then they'll always go back and praise the Thrawn trilogy, where the concept comes from. A little bit of double standards going on there. But yeah, George Lucas basically dictated that the villains, that he actually dictated that they couldn't be Force users, which stemmed from his belief that the Sith couldn't form a stable society. But basically they wanted to... I like the idea that some creatures have natural Force resistance. Yeah, it's a pretty cool concept, and it's definitely in the Heir of the Empire trilogy. It was really good for... it was a good kind of... what would you call it? A mechanism, because Thrawn obviously used it against Jur Sabaoth, because otherwise they would have just got killed straight away. It was a good thing to keep him on under wraps. Force choke the like button. Cheers, purist. If you've just come in, we've just been talking a little bit about the history of the new Jedi Order. I've directed people towards your channel because obviously you've been talking about the series Bible. You're close to hit 200 subscribers. That's right, I'll be putting the helmet on. Close down YouTube and try to focus on work. Alright. Dude, go do what you got to do. You're probably not missing much. Just rattling on about nerdy stuff. But I think I'm about 7 subs away from 200. Cheers, dude. I wish you were here for the start. I didn't want to restart. But I'll summarise it a wee bit. We were talking about how the new Jedi Order is the only 3 away, really. Like, I've got to get to work on that 200 sub video then. But yeah, you guessed it. I'll be putting the helmet on, and I've got a wee surprise for you, so that'll be fun. My original idea was to reenact the entire Jacob video where he talks about the Grogu doll. Going to use your thumbnail for our slides tomorrow. Alright, aye, sure. I took it from one of the Vector Prime posters, I think. Oh, cheers, Knights of Undercover. Yeah, surprisingly, about 90 odd people watched that stream. It was a lot of fun for me anyway. You got it already, cool, nice one. Yeah, so the new Jedi Order's the longest running book series in the expanded universe. They wanted to do one large chronological story because the Bantam era books were just trilogies and duologies. They were told out of order and published in succession, so they were getting told out of order. They hired 12 authors to undertake it and collaborate. You guys are awesome. You're always really supportive. It's cool. And I talked a little bit about Nominor and how he was introduced through the Crimson Empire 2 comics. Sorry for anyone on replay that's getting this relayed to them. James Lucino did the series Bible, and Mako Stackpole was involved because he was the only person that had read the Visions of the Vision of the Future by Timothy Zahn, which these move on from. So we're kind of caught up there. We talked a little bit about the Yuzong Vong, and let's see. Right, there we go. So everyone involved in these meetings agreed that it was necessary to take things, shake things up, basically by killing one of the previously invincible characters. Stackpole calls them the Magnificent Seven. So I think that'll be, let's see, Luke, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, and R2, Lando. So there's your 7. Almost forgot about Lando there. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But during the initial planning stages, it was decided that a new generation of characters would play a large part in the series, but the older generation would also remain just as important. And that's a big kick in the teeth when you think about the new stuff like the Disney trilogy, where they tried to pass the torch over a bit. They try and hand the torch over, but they did it in the most disrespectful way possible. They just murder all the original characters. Undoing the expanded universe as well with the death of Chewbacca, just to bring him back. They brought him back and killed all his friends, and now he's stuck with the new characters. And they fake killed him as well. They had you. Ray blew him up, and then you're like, oh, I guess he's dead now. And then he wasn't dead, so they psyched you. So they undid all this great work just for that. Shocking, shameful, really. Somehow Chewbacca returned. That some of the clips I found of R.A. Salvatore, the author, he talks about it, and he refers to Chewbacca as like a Disney princess, and it's pretty funny. Where did I get to? So basically they made a conscious effort to apply all of these mythological archetypes in the story arcs, influenced by Joseph Campbell, who we all know is a big inspiration for George Lucas. I remember I could never find this quote when I was doing my research for the video I did, but I do recall reading somewhere that Joseph Campbell called George Lucas his greatest pupil or student or something like that. Because George met him and he actually did get him to sit down and watch all 3 movies, and he apparently loved it, and you could see where he'd hit all the points of like the hero's journey and all that kind of thing. Really cool. Basically, early on in the talks about the series, Anakin Solo was stated to be the prophesied hero. And basically he'd fall in love with a female villain, basically, and then Jason and Jaina would intervene and confront him, and then Jason would be killed during that. George Lucas reviewed this story arc, but he concluded that it was not original enough. He wrote that it was too redundant to movie storylines and that the books should be more original. Yeah, that sounds like someone that really doesn't care about where the story and the books are going. Um, Basically, he had concerns that in that story pitch, Anakin's story would too closely resemble his grandfather's, being Anakin Skywalker, who he was currently writing the prequels for. Hello, Vex. Good to see you again, buddy. Hope you're doing well, man. So, the clips you use for videos for EU book reviews, download clips. Oh, really? Cool. He only signed on the dotted line. That's what people say, don't they? They're like, oh, the EU was just a way of making money. George loved money. It's like the movies made him money too, but he made what he wanted to make. He wasn't just trying to please fans. And then so with the books as well, they're going through him to get those made, and he's saying, well, that works and that doesn't. Movies made him a lot. Yeah, exactly. We're on the same wavelength there. But so yeah, he thought it would be too close to Anakin Skywalker's storyline and would cause confusion. So why would it cause confusion if people were only interested in the movies? Purist always brings up the point that like all of these books were New York Times bestsellers. Like people were reading these. One for their top 5. Yeah, exactly. You don't want two around at the same time. It'd be confusing for actual Star Wars fans who are interested. Doing great, super hype for the stupid. Cool, Vex. Looking forward to seeing you there. Yesterday I was going through my notes, and I was kind of just making them a bit more accessible, I guess, and to a point where I can be a bit more fluent. I felt like on the last stream I couldn't quite. It was the first time I was properly streaming, apart from Purist's anniversary stream, and then so I got a bit overwhelmed, I think, and I couldn't quite gather my thoughts, and there was a lot of things I wish I'd brought out that I forgot about. But it's cool. I'll definitely have a better response for each chapter, and we're going to go through it in a lot of detail, and I hope you guys get a kick out of it because it's a lot of fun to talk about. As you can see, I'm going over this just now. So yes, so George Lucas was working out ideas for the Chosen One prophecy, and he thought that conflict between dark side and light side in the galaxy should reach a satisfying can't even speak conclusion by the end of Return of the Jedi, and then it shouldn't resurface. He thought a lot of those ideas were getting retreaded a bit too much, which is something some people will complain about the expanded universe, that it kind of rehashed things like that. But you know, it's all poetry, it rhymes. So he challenged the story team to be more creative, and so he advised that Jacen Solo should be the primary protagonist instead of Anakin. But the story team independently decided that Anakin should die midway through the series. Spoiler alert. And during my research I found that it was already written in the story bible of the series that he would die in Star by Star. That's the ninth novel, confirming that it was their intention the whole time before publication even began. So it's not like they were just killing him off just to get a rise out of the fans. I'm looking forward to that novel as well. I know that's a lot of people regard that as one of the best. If it's anything like Vector Prime, then I'll be all over it. On that note, James Luceno recounted that after feedback from George, we decided on Jacen as our hero, and the character who would undergo the most dramatic changes. In many ways, the New Jedi Order is really his series. So I, for one, I'm really looking forward to learning more about Jason, and I know that in the next series of books, he actually turns to the dark side. So I'm really interested to see what kind of brings on that turn. And I guess it's a really good use of subversion. I will do my Mandalorian and Grogu exposing the Filoni faithful that the sequel trilogy will not get reaction. Oh, retcon. Oh, those movies are never getting retconned. But it doesn't really matter because they're not real Star Wars anyway. Where's I? Yeah, actually, James Luceno actually admits here that Anakin was the stronger of the siblings, and basically his death would affect things majorly, since he was the obvious choice to be Luke's successor. So as I was saying, that's a good way to subvert the expectations of the reader, without just um how would you say, like with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, they just flipped him to a point where he was unrecognizable. That's really awesome that yous are all reading that book. Um, it's real Star Wars, and we should all be giving it as much, if not more, attention than you should be giving these books more attention than you are trashing the new stuff. I think it's a lot more fun, to be honest. In fact, the planning team did have a general idea of how the series would end. I was telling you about this earlier, but they intended for NGO to be an organic, adaptive series, not carved in stone. So they had a lot of those concepts and ideas and story arcs. It was just a matter of collaborating as they went on and see where it goes. George Lucas continued to be involved in advising and reviewing the general story revisions until the final outline, which was approved by him. I want to read the books that lead up to the NGO first before I jump in, though. Yeah, sure, that's fair enough. If I could go back, I would probably read the novels in release order. But as it stands just now, I'm just reading novels that I think I'll really enjoy. Like, I'm trying not to focus too much on being linear. Oh, Jendy Tartakovsky over Dave Filoni any day of the week. Any day. There's a few clips I found of him talking about the 2003 Clone Wars. Was it clips? No, it wasn't clips. It was interviews, and he was stating that that series was canon, and he was shocked because he remembers a lot of that stuff that he worked on being included in encyclopedias and source books, and people that worked on that as well. They were really excited. They were like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm actually like involved in Star Wars." So they recognized and they knew that all of this stuff counted and it added towards the overall expanding universe and the Star Wars galaxy. But he says that George decanonized it. I don't believe that. I think he's just seeing that the CGI version 2008 kind of trumped his. My stream. Oh, nice one. That should be. I should be able to catch it then. I should be able to catch your stream. I'm just a clickbait hate channel. I should just. It's true. All you do is hate everyone, purist. It's not like you provide any good content or anything. Nah, that's a lie. That's a lie. Your channel's awesome, man. And if you take the time to expose people that are misrepresenting the lore, I think that's fair game, to be honest. I'm definitely supportive of that. it's just wild when you call that stuff out and people say that you're the one being toxic and negative when you're actually the one that's defending the thing that everyone's supposed to be a fan of, you know. uh, oh, and here's the bit that was in my video that purist apparently didn't watch, so I'm calling him out here. The new Jedi Order sourcebook is a sourcebook for the Star Wars role-playing game published by Wizards of the Coast, and it covers information from. He's no a grifter. He's a grafter. He does all the hard work. Calls out the grifters. It covers information related to the new Jedi Order series from Vector Prime through to Star by Star, and unfortunately they didn't ever do a part 2 to that. Again, Purist's channel, he did a stream covering the source book, which I believe he said that it kind of retreads a lot of the series Bible, a lot of that info about the Vong. Oh, he's got it on his desk. What a nerd. got my NGO source book right here. And the publication of the new Jedi Order series spawned the release of a number of action figures, believe it or not, among a lot of advertisements and commercials and a lot of merchandise to promote it. 5. Alright, cool. 5 p.m. for you is about 10 or 11 for me, so yeah, I should be able to catch that, man. I'm looking forward to it. Put it in your community notes as well, because I'm pretty forgetful. Because I always forget. Today's the first time I've actually done that, and I'm glad because there was only one person in here, and now I've got a good handful of you, so it's good. Talking to myself, not fun. So yeah, there was magazine ads, posters, postcards. At the start of the stream, we were talking about the commercial that Mark Hamill did the voiceover work for. It would have been really cool if they'd done one of those for like each novel. Like I know for my history of videos, I'm obviously going to be working my way through the new Jedi Order, but I feel like a lot of the information kind of coincides with Vector Prime, so the rest of those videos will probably be a bit shorter and more compact, which is easier for me, I suppose. Oh, and do yourselves a favor, because the artwork for the I'll read this real quick. Alora, so Citizen was right. I was actually on one of the slides I had on your stream. Ah, okay. Cool. The artwork, the Japanese artwork, I don't want to botch his name. Sayoshi Nagano. Go check out the Japanese covers for the new Jedi Order. They're absolutely stunning. Actually, they're gorgeous. Really nice paintings, like big horizontal like masterpieces, I'd say. And there's only 19 books in the series, but I believe there's 2 or 3 of the books he did like extra artwork for, so there's about 21 or 22 pieces of art, but they're beautiful. Oh no, I just clicked off of my notes. Talk amongst yourselves. Where is it? Oh, you're kidding me. There we go. I found a link the other day that had all that artwork in pretty good detail. If they ever bring up NGO to the Essential Legends, the the Essential Legends is a bit of a kick in the teeth, I think. Like, who over there at Disney Lucasfilm decides like which novels are essential? Because the fact that they're all interconnecting and maintain such good continuity, you'd think that if one was essential, then they all were. Like, obviously, there's novels that don't tie in as much or people like less, but they're all part of the same story. So, and I know with the X-wing novels, they're actually changing names and things like that. All right, I get what you mean, Tony. If they did those Essential Legends, they should just use the Japanese artwork. Um, that yeah, obviously that'd be their best choice. That some of the artwork they do for those is terrible. Like, I hate slagging people's art because I'm no Picasso, but managed to get first. I mind you talking about that Star Wars look. That the X-wing series is a series I'm looking forward to, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. I think that's why Stackpole was chosen for the second and third book in this series, because he's really good at writing like space battles and things like that. I've already told you about that. Let's see. Do you have a Disney Plus subscription? Do I have one? No, I don't have one. I think. Yeah, get started on it as soon as you can. Nah, I mean, to be honest, I don't actually watch a lot of TV. Like, I used to have hobbies. Um, I used to like drawing, and I used to like playing guitar. I mean, I still like playing guitar, but I just don't make time for it. But since getting into the EU, like, if I've got a bit of spare time, I'll try and read some of that. You know, I probably should have better time management to get things done. You know. No, I'm not. There's no. I have a Disney Plus subscription, and I don't watch Disney Star Wars. I mean, fair enough. I mean, I know they're. That's the thing about Disney Plus. Like, I know people were going on at Echo Base Network for having one, um, and rightly so, because here's what I'll say: if you're the kind of person that's going out there, and you're telling people don't support Disney, you're telling people that it's all trash and that you hate it, um, then just don't be a hypocrite. Just don't be a hypocrite and go and support them by giving them money and um, giving them views on that content that you're saying that you don't like. Very, very hypocritical. But if you're just like, I couldn't really care less what people spend their money on, you know. Although, tell you a funny story. Yeah, I try not to get the Legends covers. It's hard to find the original. Yeah, that's right, Vex. I've been pretty fortunate so far that I've managed to get what I'm looking for without the Legends labels. The thing is, like, over time it's going to be a lot harder than it is now. Either they're going to be more scarce or they're going to get more expensive. Like the Plagueis novel, it's in hardback at least, it's really expensive, and since I got the Kenobi novel, it's went up in price as well. I think that's a lot to do with the series coming out. Like, for some reason, people think when these series come out, they need to read certain EU novels to understand it, but it's all been um, relegated to Legends, so it doesn't count. Yeah, hardback prices are high. We talked about the source book, the artwork. Um, yeah, so the success of this, the NGO series, basically sparked the uh, it sparked the need for more of that. So it paved the way for future multi-author projects such as Legacy of the Force and The Fate of the Jedi. So I think those are the other books that Star Wars Theory had in his big box, and he was chucking them all on the floor. Uh, and now they're either gathering dust on the shelf or they're gathering dust on the floor. But and that sadly my biggest novel is Legends, but that was my first EU novel. And uh, I mean, if it's what you can get hold of, it's better to be reading the stuff any way you can. Uh, yeah, I'm not going to grudge anyone for doing what they need to. I know a lot of the omnibuses. I was talking to Steve Kenobi about that. A lot of the omnibuses of the old Marvel comics, um, they were re-released by Disney, and you can basically, I think there's about 5 of them, and it's got all of it, and it's a lot cheaper for it's a lot cheaper to get that shipped to you. Yeah, yeah, that's right, Tony. They're expensive. So if you wanted, like, otherwise, if you wanted to get all those original comics, you'll have to search and find like each single issue, and then depending where you live in the world, it could cost you like so much money to get all that shipped out to you. Like you'd be skint by the end of it. So I mean, it's more of a conscience matter, I guess. But it's up to you. I mean, I wouldn't grudge anyone if they did buy the Legends label, if that's all that you could get a hold of. But I was saying it's not up to me how you spend your money. I remember I was part of a Discord. I'll not say whose Discord it was, but they were talking about when the Phantom Menace was getting released, and I think I'd had a whiskey or two, and I was just like, oh, if you go and see the Phantom Menace in cinema, you no longer reserve the right to criticize Disney, blah blah blah, and people got triggered, like they got really mad. Um, I'm pretty sure I was pretty rude to Purist that day, and I had to apologize to him, but it was a chance meeting, I suppose, because uh, now we're pretty well associated, so it worked out for the best, I suppose. Because I don't follow those channels anymore because they're among the hope grifters, as you could say. Some might say fence riders, or Darth Paws would say fence riders. I hate the Legends label slapped over the mark. Yeah, I mean it is an eyesore, the Legends label. I know Matt Wilkins sees it as like a stamp of approval, especially with the what's that organization called, the Twin Sun Foundation, and they supply novels to like kids and stuff like that. And he was saying that children approach him and they're like, oh, so if this has the Legends label, that means it's the good story. And he's like, yeah, yeah, that's the good story, pal. So it's just whatever your perception is of it, the way you look at it. Um, so we've covered a bit of the history of NGO. We'll talk a little bit about Vector Prime. Not, I won't talk too much about the story, although a lot of my notes revolve around the decision to kill Chewbacca. Um, so R.A. Salvatore, this was his first Star Wars novel, published on October 5th, 1999, and I believe his only other novel that he did was actually the Attack of the Clones novelization. which after the backlash from this book, he basically said, nah, I don't want to go back to that. And it was Terry Brooks who did the new slides are ready. Yeah, that Discord more normies in. Aye. They didn't, when I was there they didn't chat too much, and it felt a bit cliquey, to be honest. Aye, it's whatever. But Twin Sons Foundation, yeah, good stuff. And so he didn't want to do the Attack of the Clones novelization. But Terry Brooks, who did the Phantom Menace novelization, they're actually good pals in real life, and he convinced them. He was like, "Are you crazy?" He's like, "You have to do this." So he put his name in the hat, and then he actually got to go meet George Lucas, and he says he got to spend a lot of time with him, about 4 hours just chatting with him, and just learned a lot about Star Wars. And the novelizations for the prequels are funny because the authors were kind of given a bit more leeway each time. So Terry Brooks wasn't given too much leeway, but saying that, the whole start to the novel, because I've had a wee flick through it, because I want to read Cloak of Deception and Shadowhunter before I get to it. It starts with Anakin on Tatooine pod racing, and I believe that chapter's about how he destroys Watto's pod racer. And then obviously in that book is where the rule of two gets mentioned, and that was also conceived by George. Yeah, stuff doesn't make it into the books without him saying it's okay. So as Matthew Stover says, what's in the books there because he wanted it there, and what's not in there is not in there because George didn't want it there, basically. So he got to do that with the rule of two. Salvatore got to do a lot. He got to change a little bit of the dialogue between the characters, as long as it didn't change the scene. And he also got to put in moments with Shmi, Anakin's mum. Yeah, Alan Dean Foster did the Force Awakens novel, didn't he? Which is funny because in that novel, Rey and, is it Poe? They meet. They actually meet in that novel, and then in the movies they meet at the end of The Last Jedi. So right away there goes Disney's promise of cohesion and synergy. You know, we're going to discard all of this stuff because George didn't care about it, and everyone just did whatever they wanted, so it was a mess, hard to follow. Oh, but we're also going to reboot it, get a clean slate, and all of our stuff from this moment onward is connected. Yeah, all lies. So yeah, I talked a little bit about the backlash. Although the response to Vector Prime, most of it was positive, he received a lot of backlash, even death threats. People go on about Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best, which I've done a video. I disproved that fallacy, but he actually did get death threats for killing Chewbacca, which is wild because if it's not canon and it doesn't matter, why are people getting upset that a movie character's dead, you know? But he was getting all the flack for it, although George approved and signed off on it. But yeah, Chewbacca's death did mark the first time that a major movie character was killed off. Where he wrote, it's not worth a nickel. It's like that Clone Wars book I have. It's a paperweight. I keep clicking the screen and ruining my spot that I'm in. There we go. But yeah, so Salvatore basically wrote the outline for the Vector Prime novel. He says he handed it in and they were pleased with it, and what was it? Yeah, he was all happy with it. They said, "Oh, this is exactly what we want." But didn't anyone tell you? And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "You need to kill Chewbacca." And he's like, "Oh well," like he swore at them or whatever. He's like, "Not doing that." Um, but they're like, "Oh, you signed a contract. You signed a contract. Basically, you have to." And he was like, "Nah, I'm not doing it." So he talked with Michael Stackpole, and he kind of eased him into it and explained to him like why they were doing it. There was a lot of divided opinion among whether it was done for the right reasons or if it was just done as a tactic to get people interested in the series. I saw a clip of Salvatore saying that to this day he still doesn't quite know if it's true that they did it for the right reasons. Um, I think he feels a little bit of regret having done it. He says he doesn't like hurting people, but he's a good writer. He's a really good writer. He got in there and showed that emotion, and I definitely felt it when I read that chapter. I'm pretty sure I sat the book down. I needed a moment, even though I knew it was coming. Like that shows how good of a writer he is. Um, so the concept of killing such a character was the decision of the book editors who sent this list of potential characters they would like to kill to Lucas. And Stackpole, I don't know where Stackpole claims that none of the characters were off limits. There's other sources like Lucy Wilson and other people that have said that Luke was off limits. You can kill anyone but Luke. And apparently, he also indicated that R2 and 3PO couldn't get destroyed either. Um, Salvatore stated, "My understanding was that in those meetings to put together NGO, uh, a lot of a lot was bantered about um, of how to put tension in the novels, um, but his understanding. Sorry, I've lost my spot here. I think the decision to kill Chewie was a painful one for everyone in the room, who are people who love the Star Wars galaxy as much as or more than anyone out there reading the books. But they decided that we had to make the point clear that when the main characters are in a fight, you really should be on the edge of your seat. In any book, at any time, someone could go. My understanding is they presented George with this and he okayed it." So Chewbacca's death was approved at the highest level, as you'd say, by George. So anyone out there hating on the EU, this is one of the talking points. They'll say, "Oh, they crushed Chewbacca with a moon. How else are you gonna kill the coolest Wookiee in the galaxy?" That's a situation he couldn't have gotten out of, and he kind of faced it with courage. I don't. I'll save it for tomorrow because I'm sure we'll touch on that for quite a little while. But he shared his inspiration for that scene. It was a poster called "The Last Great Act of Defiance," and it's this poster of a mouse basically giving the middle finger to this big eagle that's coming down to snatch him away. Kind of just facing something head on, knowing that it's not going to end well for you. Really heroic, really admirable. Miles better than Han's death in TFA. Oh yeah, Darth Prime. If you want to slag, if someone wants to slag Chewbacca's death, just remind them of how they killed Han. They literally gave Han Solo a villain's death. They stabbed him and chucked him down a hole. No one got to mourn his body. Like no one was there for him. He died alone. With strangers around him. Chewbacca was helpless. Do you think you're missing out on context reading NGO without some prior novels? Well, Vex, that's one of the things we were talking about on the last stream. This Vector Prime, the way it's written, you're kind of. It's kind of. I guess it's kind of like watching A New Hope for the first time. You start in the middle of it, but you kind of get the idea what's going on. And the characters are written so well and in a way that you're being introduced to them, and you don't really need that. Did him? Aye, they did him dirty. You're introduced to these characters as if it's for the first time, so it's just really well crafted. Like, you can come into this having read everything or having read nothing. Like, for me, for example, I didn't read any of those Young Jedi Knight novels that are to do with Jason, Anakin, and Jaina. The last time I read about them, they were in the womb or being born. Um, so it does it's really descriptive of the characters. Uh, yeah, yeah, I'm glad that's helpful. It's just really well written, and um, it's yeah, you can long story short, you can read it without reading other books. But that's one of the cool things about the EU is it has all these tie-ins, but it doesn't like rely on them. And I think that's a good way for people that have been reading the EU for a long time. No, I think sure if you read the right. So I thought Purist was disagreeing with me there, but he's yeah. If you read those other, you'll definitely get more context and more attachments, but it's not necessary basically. Which just goes to show how well these books were written. But no, they're just all a big jumbling mess. Authors just did whatever they wanted. Oh, Matthew, you don't like the duology as much as the trilogy? I would say to read the Thrawn trilogy, Jedi Academy first if possible, but NGO is great. Nice. Yeah, I know Purist got hold of those Young Jedi. Um, I literally just saw what he said. The Young Jedi Knight. I can't. Did remind me what they're called. The Jason, Anakin, and Jaina novels. I know he recently got a hold of those, and he's been getting a lot more context for those characters, which is cool. And those books they're not obviously they're for young Jedi Knights. Cheers, man. They're obviously written for like a younger audience, but they're not juvenile. You know, apparently they're a really good read, so they are harder to get a hold of. I do believe so. Um, so he was saying that George Lucas okayed Chewbacca's death, and we go on to Leland Chee. He revealed that Chewie's death was a major factor in the decision made by Disney Lucasfilm to scrap the EU out of continuity altogether and regulate it to Legends in 2014. And apparently it's because general audiences wouldn't understand why Chewbacca wasn't in The Force Awakens. And then you've got Stackpole saying, can you have a movie without Chewbacca? So far the answer is no. Stackpole, did you watch The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones? I don't remember seeing Chewbacca in there. Like, people say those are the two worst Star Wars movies, but it's not because Chewbacca's not in it. Do you think Luke Skywalker should have died in one of the EU books? Luke has kids, plural. Even though he did a lore. Aye, it's even I know that, and I've not read it yet. Luke and Mara had Ben. Ben Skywalker. Star Wars Theory thinks Luke has more than one kid. Well. Lore Master. His Lore Masters aren't keeping him informed, I think. But aye, and then Star Wars Theory has little knowledge of the EU. It's true, and he's admitted it as well. He doesn't. He doesn't. He doesn't even have to admit it. Did you see him recommending novels the other week? People were asking him which novels they should read first. Aye, Purist has the receipts. I'm sure he's got a video coming out about I'll let him reveal it. Yeah, he does good content. They were him and Stupendous Wave were asked which which EU novels they should start with, and they were like, oh, apart from Plagueis, oh, drawing a blank, the Bane trilogy, and then Stupendous Waves like what is it? He says Red Harvest, who, there, Red Harvest, which a lot of people say is like one of the worst EU novels, unless you're like a horror fan like Purist is. Shatterpoint, like that's why I'm reading Shatterpoint, because people know about it and they might be interested, but like I'm not fooling myself into thinking it's like where you should start reading. The Approaching Storm. It was a bunch of just random novels. Just like name any novel. If they could, it was like that video. The guys debating Darth Pause last night. He started talking about the EU, and he's like, "Have you read any of it?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." I mean, Coach from EBN said he'd read it. Oh, Decrepit's here. Hey man, good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Coach from EBN said that he was just like, "Yeah, yeah, I've read the EU." I remember when I used to watch their channel, he specifically said that he hadn't read the EU. So, but that other guy, that wasn't Coach or Nick from EBN, he said that he'd read it and there was a lot of garbage in it, basically. And then Pause was like, "Oh well, what didn't you like about it?" And he's like, I mean, I liked the Thrawn stuff." You know, aye, everyone likes the Thrawn stuff. Genius. um. Where did we get to? But yeah, Leland Chi talking about Chewbacca's death. There's a quote of him saying that it's the quote you'll see going around where he says that Star Wars does not reboot. Reboot as in restart continuity. What happens. When Chewbacca died, Chewbacca died. It's one of the biggest challenges and greatest successes of the EU is the greatly maintained continuity. And obviously, all those offers, all those years, all those books, material content, obviously there's going to be a couple of hiccups. Like, Star Wars isn't the only property to undergo that kind of, Soul Assassin's in here. Right, I've made it. Soul Assassin's in the chat. Other properties have obviously done the continuity thing pretty well, but Star Wars just did it like on another level. You know, they're not the first project to do it. So yeah, when Chewbacca died, and then that's obviously a big factor as in why they canned it. But they would have canned it anyway, even if Chewbacca hadn't died. But talking about sequels, we know that George Lucas has had there's been loads of different concepts of his sequels. You've got this is one I would have liked to have seen. The sequel trilogy should have adapted The Legacy of the Force, not made by Disney. Yeah, I mean, anything would have been better. Like, hey, start a Shatterpoint 6 months into the Clone Wars. Yeah, yeah. So he had the one I would have liked to have seen was like a trilogy about the midichlorians. Going into the history about that. I just think it'd be funny. Like, you're waiting for the next Star Wars movie, and then it's just all this like Force science stuff. But after reading Plagueis, especially, like, I'm really interested in that. And the funny thing is, I've read a quote from James Luceno, where he actually admitted that like he is not a fan of the midichlorians. He's against it, but he writes it so well. Oh, hi there, little porg. The other concept they had for, wait, I'll read this real quick. It's like if you're going to watch Star Wars, right, you should start with Attack of the Clones. Nah, start with the Ewok movies. Yeah, his other idea for the sequels was Darth Maul and Darth Talon. Oh, hey Stieg, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing good, man. Yeah, I'm good. Just chilling tonight. I've just been going over the NGO. I keep saying it like that, NGO. The NGO series, because obviously I'm doing that stream tomorrow night where we're going to be talking about Vector Prime. But the thing, Stieg knows a lot about this. It's George's idea for his sequels. One of the ideas where Darth Maul and Darth Talon are involved, but it was originally for a game idea, and then you had people saying that, well, in the timeline Darth Talon and Darth Maul are in different eras, so that wouldn't work. And George said, alright, well, you could just make Darth Maul a clone then. So he was open to changing things to make it fit, you know? Obviously he's not writing and reading every single book. It broke, yeah. Oh, so it became a game concept after, right? Like, I look for some of that stuff on the Wikipedia page, and it's either been altered or it's gone. A lot of that history is just gone. That's why it's good that people like Stieg were around a few years ago to get loads of screenshots of that stuff. But yeah, we're talking a bit about George's concepts for sequels. I've got a quote here. Basically, a few months before the release of Vector Prime, Lucas gave an interview where he talked about the Phantom Menace, and a question came up about novels and the possibility of sequels, and his answer was pretty direct. He said, and I quote, "The sequels were never really going to get made anyway. Unlike 1, 2, and 3, where the stories have existed for 20 years. Remember, this is 1999. They need to release the full manuscripts, but they never will because they know people would prefer." Oh, you're right, little porg. Disney are you talking about the George's treatments for? They're definitely never going to release those. They've got them in a vault somewhere. They've probably burned them at this point. But obviously they weren't full scripts. It's not like George wrote 3 movies. Aye, I thought that's what you meant. Did I stop reading halfway through a quote? That's insane. I'm a psycho. The idea of 7, 8, and 9 actually came from people asking me about sequels. And I said, I don't know, maybe someday. Then, when the licensing people came and asked, can we do novels? I said, do sequels, because I'll probably never do sequels. So there you go. At this time, when George was working on prequel content, his idea for novels was to cover sequel content. So there you go. That was his mindset during the creation of the new Jedi Order. And you'll see that, like, a lot of my videos opens with that that footage of him saying that the original saga was about the father, the children, and the grandchildren. It's in the novels. So he definitely must remember his time working on the new Jedi Order series. And that's obviously after the sale, and he's obviously wasn't pleased with The Force Awakens. Hey Jordan Star Wars, cheers for joining and bringing your knowledge with you. So there's a bit of that, and there's other interviews from George over the years where I know 3 more subs. It was like 7 earlier. Oh, Darth Talon's and is she in the Legacy comics? Is that with Cade Cade Skywalker? Yeah, that is the Legacy comics, isn't it? I know people like Darth Talon, and I wonder why. You know, George liked her, probably for the same reasons he put Ayla Secura in the movies. Speaking of, he was obviously he was a visual guy and a big comic book fan. So, check your. I would check my DMs, but because I'm a noob and an amateur, I'm using my phone for streaming right now. So, I'll get back to you. Cheers, Steve. It's probably something useful that I could talk about, and yeah. So over the years, George Lucas revealed a little bit more about what he would do with sequels. He said in 1983, it was an interview about Return of the Jedi, just after it was released, and he said that the sequels would be about the necessity of moral choices and the wisdom needed to distinguish right from wrong. And throughout the 80s, he also said that it would concern rebuilding the Republic after the fall of the Empire, Jedi knighthood, justice, confrontation, and passing on what you have learned. So the parallels between those concepts and what's seen in the New Jedi Order are pretty evident, I would say. And that it's going back to what we were talking about with the sequels. You know, the passing of that torch not done respectfully. Yeah, absolute disaster. Has does anyone in the chat actually revisit the Disney trilogy? Like, have you ever actually went back and watched it? Just a random question. Oh, I can click on this and find comments that passed. Awesome. When Lucas added El Secura to episode 2, he wouldn't have bothered keeping the name exact. Yeah, you're right. Because there's that clip where George is talking about putting more Jedi in the Geonosis battle scene, the end of Attack of the Clones, and he was talking about finding more Jedi to put in the background because they all basically they all basically looked like ILM employees. And he says, you know, making movies, you only have so many resources, but we had loads of Twi'leks. And he says, we had a comic book character who was a Twi'lek Jedi. And I thought, you know, let's use some of the hard work from the comic book world. You know, I did that video, that video about what George thinks about worlds within the Star Wars universe. I don't remember seeing Ayla Secura at the Jedi Temple. Fake fan. Aye. I'm a fake fan. Do, 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 do. But yeah, that's pretty much just having a wee look here. Yeah, that's all my notes for New Jedi Order and Vector Prime. Obviously, if you tune in, I'll plug the stream one last time. If you tune in tomorrow night, we'll be talking about the second half. So that's chapter 14 through to the eulogy in chapter 26. And as I say, it'll be emotional because we'll be saying goodbye to Chewbacca. So the Scotsman's out of beer. What's going to happen? Mod. Oh yeah, if I could, spoilers. Purist. I'll definitely do that once I find out how to do it. Once I find out how to do it, I'll do it for you. Um. Let's see. Anything else we should touch on before I vamos? Is it vamonos? Oh, I can just click on the add as moderator. Nice. You've got managing moderator and standard moderator. Can manage blocked words. Oh, you need to block anyone that disagrees with me. Put them in a timeout at least. Chat modes. Standard, you can... Why am I reading without my glasses? Can review and remove chat messages and hide or put users in timeout. I don't know the difference. I'm being stupid. Exactly, total nerd. And why am I having a hard time with this? A managing moderator can manage blocked words and change chat modes in live. And also has standard moderator capabilities. You know what, Purist? I trust you. I'll click that one. There you go. If Soul Assassin wants to say something intellectual, I'll click on him and do it for him as well. Because we all know Soul Assassin's the best moderator in the Star Wars YouTube sphere. Do we have any fence riders in the chat? You know what I want? I want to get Darth Paws in here so I can debate him. And I'll get all my pals in here to back me up. Right, dudes. I kind of feel like I've covered what I wanted to cover and I don't want to take up any more of your time, so I am the worst mod. I have tons of... You guys are awesome. Right, basically, come along tomorrow. It will be 12 p.m. for me, so let's see, is that 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 p.m. America, Central Time. We'll be talking about Vector Prime. It'll be the last time you hear me blabbing about it for a while. You'll get some peace, and we'll just be talking some... we'll be talking some real Star Wars lore. We will not be watching the Skeleton Crew. Oh, cheers for... Dude, that's pretty cool having a mod in the chat. Oh, there's Soul Assassin. Bunch of nerds talking Star Wars. Add as moderator. Soul Assassin's awesome. Soul Assassin supports like a lot of the Star Wars channels. It's cool. Aye, so if you come along and talk about that with us, we will have a good time, and aye, it'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been about a month maybe since the last time we did one. I enjoy discussing lore. That's what it's all about, preserving the lore, canon and continuity of George Lucas era Star Wars, which people, they get upset when you point that out, don't they? You say the Disney stuff really... Yeah, if I can convince my wife to let me do a stream Monday, I'll do the I'll do the next chapter of Shatterpoint. and hopefully I won't stumble as much this time. But yeah, Disney Star Wars, obviously they destroyed the true canon and they cherry pick from it and they lie about it, and they the fence riders, as we say, they'll watch it and then they'll get upset. They'll get upset when you point it out, you know. And then you're the toxic one. You're the nasty one that's punching down and just they can't they don't understand, and you get called like an elitist and like a know-it-all, you know. I certainly don't know everything about Star Wars. Certainly not half as much as a bunch of you guys that are in here. So, right, dudes. Cheers for hanging out. Cheers for talking with me about New Jedi Order, and I will see you all hopefully tomorrow. I'll try and get a nap before the stream. All right. Star Wars Marvel purist punches down on Star Wars theory. Sure. Cheers, purist. I'm sure I'll speak to you before tomorrow, and have a good night, everyone. All right. Take care. Oh, long live the EU and lang may your lums reek.